the Bengals. It was actually something I was thinking about while I was driving around today, and I was like, okay, like who's got it? Kind of like what? Who's in the championship bubble? Who's Super Bowl window is like kind of open right now? And I'm going through. I'm like, well, obviously the Chiefs are. I would say the Niners are, but probably closer to the back end of it, right? Trent Williams is getting old. McCaffrey, Kittle, they're not old, but they play hard. They get banged up. Debo, same way. Like you're gonna start paying people soon. You're gonna start losing people soon. So they're at the back end of their windows open. I would say Packers are coming into it with what we think is going to be a star quarterback. Same thing with maybe the Chargers as they're starting to open with a good coach. We'll find out this year. So I'm going through all these teams, and I get to the AFC North, and I'm like, I don't like Deshaun Watson. I don't think he could be that noisy at quarterback and have a Super Bowl window be open. So I would say that's a no for them. I get to Baltimore. I like Lamar. I think that's probably an open Super Bowl window. Not they're not the best team, in the AFC, but they're certainly a contender. I would say their Super Bowl window is open. Steelers, I don't view them as a contender. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I'm officially out on the team. I just don't think it's a legit operation right now. And then you get to the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm like, I actually don't know. I feel like a lot of people, this is a very simple answer. It's like, oh, of course, it's Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Absolutely, their Super Bowl window's open. They just got to one, 3 years ago? I would just, it's a caution. Just be careful on that. Right? I said this about, Lamar and the Ravens last week, where it's like, how many more playoff failures till we start to kind of view him as just like Dak, who good in the regular season, going to put up big numbers, good leader, good statistical guy, but doesn't really kind of perform when it matters, right? So how many more playoff L's does Lamar take before that becomes his reality? And I'm getting to the same spot with the Bengals where it's like, how many more injuries to Burrow before they draft a quarterback? How many more injuries to Burrow before we are like, well, that's just not a serious football operation when your star quarterback's healthy half the time at best? And T. Higgins on a franchise tag. You're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. Your best defensive player, Trey Hendrickson, requested a trade this past year. Now, he said he'll go ahead and play for the Bengals, if that's what they so choose to do. Obviously, they have, control over him and his contract. So at the end of the day, he's like, I'll play for him if I have to, but he would prefer to be elsewhere. So at the end of his contract, which I think is next year, he'll prefer to go elsewhere. So this is one of those things where you start adding up these pieces where it's like, well, Burrow gets hurt a lot. Hendrickson's going to leave soon. T. Higgins needs a contract, and I don't know if they're going to have enough money to pay him, which if they don't, that means he's going to go elsewhere. You're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. You already lost Joe Mixon. Your offensive line's been in limbo for years now. And when you're paying all these other positions, are you going to be able to allocate enough resources to the offensive line? Defense has always been mediocre at best. And again, with the minimal allocation of resources to that side of the football, do we see it getting any better? I know they're investing draft capital, but that puts a ton of pressure on your front office to hit on those picks. Not just your first round pick, your second, your third, your fourth. You got to find a gem in the sixth that you're going to pay $300,000 to, right? You got to find your Brock Purdy, but safety edition, right? These are all concerns for the Bengals, and you start adding all that up, and you're like, well, so is their Super Bowl window open? And if so, how long? And you're tallying it up, and I'm tallying it up today, and I'm like, is this kind of the last year for them to make a big run with this core? Now, I'm not saying they can't, deal off some pieces and kind of retool within the next couple years, but with this core, Burrow, Higgins, Chase, Hendrickson, you already lost Mixon, Zach Taylor as the head coach, you already lost your offensive coordinator. Is this the last year for most of this core to make a legitimate playoff run, go into Arrowhead, win another playoff game, and actually have a shot at a Super Bowl? My argument is yes. I think they're closer to a Dallas Cowboys in terms of this is a 1 year, prove it year for almost everybody involved. Now, I'm not saying you're moving off Joe Burrow, but what if Joe Burrow goes out in the fifth game of the year and snaps his ACL? And again, even if he's a rival, I'm not hoping for that. I'm never going to hope for somebody to get hurt. But what if that happens? Like, there's a legitimate argument. You have to now draft a quarterback, maybe not first round, second, third. You just have to start looking for a legitimate replacement for Joe Burrow if he can't stay healthy, right? What if you're average this year and then T. Higgins leaves, Trey Hendrickson leaves? Like, this could be the last year for the Bengals to actually do something. There's going to be a ton of pressure on this organization for an organization that's not used to being in the spotlight like this. This is one of my most fascinating watches for teams that I don't think anybody's talking about. I can sit up here and be like, oh, I'm interested to watch the Cowboys. Well, yeah, so are like 2 billion people across the world. Like, that's not like new, right? Like, everybody's, watches the Cowboys. Or like, I'm excited to watch the Steelers. Well, yeah, no shit. I'm from Pittsburgh, and they have probably the most interesting quarterback situation in the league this year. Obviously, right? Like, but nobody's talking about the Bengals because we just assume, oh, well, Joe's healthy. Jamar's back. They got T. Higgins on the franchise tag. Trey decided to stay this year. If it doesn't go well, it almost feels like a little bit of a house of cards here. Like, I'm not saying to the extent of the Jets, but if the Jets get off to a 2-4 start, it's going to be mayhem in New York. If the Bengals get off to a 1-4, 1-5 start, or if they are below 500 halfway through the year, it is going to be a spicy media, right? I know Cincinnati media is not overbearing, but the Bengals get a lot of pub on your Fox Sports, on your ESPNs, because of Burrow, because of Chase. I'm just saying, I'm not predicting that they're going to be bad, but one tweak to Joe's knee, one injury to Jamar T. Higgins, one little losing streak, I feel like it could be a little bit of a house of cards. It has that potential. Am I crazy on that?